What are Uyghur fighters born in China doing in Syria? The Uyghurs are a Turkic ethnic group that mostly live in an area now controlled by China. They've long wanted more cultural autonomy, and some of them have even wanted their own state. You may remember hearing about them in the news, especially after China imposed a wave of repressive policies on Uyghurs that ratcheted up after 2016. China ended up detaining at least hundreds of thousands of these Uyghurs, mostly without due process. Beijing justified these policies in part by saying that Uyghur fighters in Syria were evidence of a global Islamist threat against China. So I went to Syria, where a nearly 14-year civil war just ended in December 2024. I ended up spending about a month with Uyghur fighters in Syria. It was the first time that they'd really done media interviews. And they told me how they and their families had endured decades of cultural and religious repression. They described having sometimes their land appropriated, relatives who had been subject to forced birth controls, how they couldn't teach in their own language, and how they struggled to get good jobs. And the men especially said they eventually felt they had no future in China, only prison. But a lot of them said what really traumatized and radicalized them to finally leave China were these deadly race riots in July 2009 between China's ethnic majority, the Han, and the Uyghurs. And it's after those race riots that many Uyghurs who ended up in Syria said they were convinced armed resistance was the only way to improve Uyghur rights in China. So they came to Syria to learn how to fight. And reporting in Syria, I learned how these Uyghur fighters became a formidable fighting force, how they were critical for Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, to shore up political power over the years in northern Syria, how they helped him win critical battles in the civil war, and eventually how they helped Syrian rebels take Damascus in December 2024. And now the future of these Uyghur fighters is uncertain all over again. Do they stay in Syria and build a Uyghur enclave there? Will Syria even let them stay? China very much considers these Uyghur fighters terrorists, and they've pushed Syria repeatedly to expel them.